Tonight on the Fanatic Forum, shall we play a game? That's right, we're going to be talking video games all episode here with my special guests Willow Schuyler and Dave Mattingly. But first, we'll show you this. Hey everybody, happy Friday and welcome to the Fanatic Forum. I'm your Fanatic and host, George Bueller. I hope everybody's having themselves a good week and a happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans out there. Thank you very much for your service. We got, of course, a lot of fun things we're going to be talking about today here. Definitely, we got lots of video game talk. We got some new comics to show off. But I would definitely be remiss to not mention the passing of Kevin Conroy that we just heard about today, even though he passed yesterday. Definitely, that's a huge loss for the voice acting community and for Bat fans everywhere. Because, that man is an iconic voice actor, but that was one particular role that just made him a legend. So, so it's just, it's sad to see him go, but what a career. And it's nice that we have this, kind of time capsule of him and this fantastic performance from the 90s that we can just go back and watch every time we want. So, it's a beautiful thing. But enough of the sadness here. We'll probably get a little bit more into that, I'm sure. But if you all have never tuned in the Fanatic Forum before, of course, my name is George Bueller. I'm your Fanatic and host. I am a lifelong comic book fan. Basically, since I was like 3 years old, I've been reading comic books. I'm also a big movie and music fan, video games, pro wrestling, whatever else. So I love to share that stuff with you guys. And I want you guys to share your passions with me as well, your questions, comments, anything else that we're talking about. So the table's open for everybody here, so I'd love to have you guys out. And seeing as I love to have my people on here, I've got some special guests this week here. For her very first appearance on the Fanatic Forum, even though Willow and I have kind of hung out together on other shows before, but her very first appearance on the Fanatic Forum, the Peppermint Princess herself from the snowy tundras of Canada, Willow Schuyler.
Hi.
Well, maybe not quite snowy right now, but still another.
Well, actually, we've been hit with the white stuff the last night, and my husband's avoiding shoveling right now. So.
Because it's pointless. It's pointless. Just wait till it's all done. So, well, welcome. Thank you very much for being on the show tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and our other guest this week, because I don't want to give him cue too long here, the man who is he's a jack of all trades, both scientific, investigation, as we've recently found out, espionage here. Of course, the main reason why he's on here, because he's super geek just like us, but he's got a little bit of video game pedigree we'll get into. Diamond Dave Mattingly, welcome very much to the Fanatic Forum, sir.
Wonderful to be back. Great to see you both.
Good to have you, man.
Hi, talking about the James Bond.
Yeah. And of course, that's why I love having you both on here, because we've got all different kinds of sides and fandoms when it comes to video gaming here. And like I said, I always find out little fun facts about you, Dave, as where our friendship grows here, and it's just each one is more fascinating than the next. So, briefly, we did find out one interesting fact right about a video gaming thing you had to do with here. If you want to tell us about that real quick.
Oh, sure. Back in the early 90s, I worked with id Software, taking the Wolfenstein 3D PC game, one of the very first first-person shooters, and I put it into a virtual reality helmet for a full arcade cabinet and had it out in arcades. That was very fun.
Yeah. That's just so cool.
I'm not worthy.
Yeah. Before that, I taught myself programming so I could learn how to make text adventure games like Zork and that kind of thing. So I kind of confiscated the high school mainframe and taught myself how to make a language parser and made it go from there.
Nice.
That's awesome. I'd say the most sophisticated thing I ever did is when I was in grade school, we had like Apple IIe computers, and it's kind of a big deal when we got those in. And so they had us doing like some DOS prompt programs. And first it was we were making like just pictures. They were not animated, where it was just pictures with using DOS prompt. And then we got like a new update in where we can animate the pictures. And so I had like all the boys had to make basketball players and the girls had to do, I don't know, somebody else. So all the boys basketball players had the same animation. Basically, it was like moving the arm or something like that. Like the ball didn't even move. It was just the arm moved like this. So, yeah. So that's my most sophisticated programming I think I've ever done. That was 40, 30, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
About the only programming thing that I've done probably would be like Mario Paint and trying to create like my music and my own like comic book stuff.
So keep that, Yeah, my first programming job was at NASA when I was a teenager writing space shuttle software.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. Wow, that's very impressive. Well, we got a couple of comments in here real quick. Mary Ann's in here. Hello, dear. Good to see you. And then Crayley's just wanted to stop by real quick because she's got things to do, people to see. So, all right. So I do have a couple of comics I want to share with you guys and the rest of the audience here. So some picks I like this week. Let's see. Some kind of deeper into the series right now, but just tremendously good issues here. Issue 6 of Captain America: Sentinel of Liberty. I love the series falling off this like big shield ship here. It kind of looks like something out of like an ELO concert, back in the 70s there. But but of this particular one of Captain America, this is probably the best issue. And I don't want to spoil anything in case you want to pick it up. But for Captain America fans and for Bucky fans as well, this is a tremendous issue. So of course, they're kind of leading into a big crossover event that's coming up pretty soon called Cold War, but that's going to be between both the Captain America books. But this is going to be awesome.
Captain America, the Elm cover.
And then this week's issue of Moon Knight number 17 with a big wolf there attacking, which I'm not sure why they have this wolf lion thing attacking Moon Knight, because this doesn't happen in the book. But there is, but this is also a fantastic Moon Knight. Honestly, a lot of fans have been talking about this particular issue, just being so good in this run for Moon Knight coming out of his midnight mission, fighting vampires, teaming up with some good vampires, also his old West Coast Avengers buddy Tigra. So, but yeah, really fun stuff here.
Yeah, the Midnight Mission is a great addition to the run. He has a pet haunted house. It's great.
Yeah, and that particular haunted house has a bit of a showcase in this issue. So
I haven't read that one yet, but I do love Moon Knight. He's my favorite.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, this particular run has been really fun. So some new number ones here I'm going to share with you guys from Boom Entertainment. This is Specs. This is from David M. Boer and Chris Sheehan are the creative team on this one. A bit of I'm not 100% sure if this is a horror thing yet or not. There's definitely some spooky stuff going on here, but the whole premise is this. If you remember in the old comics, like you can send off for like little gadgets like X-ray glasses and stink bombs and vampire teeth, all that kind of jazz. Well, these are glasses you could send off for that basically would make your wishes come true. And so our lead characters start off with some small stuff, maybe some, very normal wishes. And then something happens where a big wish happens. And, well, some things happen from there. So, but some interesting context and characterization in here as well, even though it takes place in the late 80s, but some, I would say some more modern day stuff. Now, I don't want to spoil too much, but Boom has been killing it lately with stuff. So I recommend that one. An interesting number one here, Fantastic Four has a new run with Alex Ross doing all the covers. So this is just gorgeous. Yeah. Ryan North is the writer on here, and don't know the artist's name here, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Coelho is the last name on there, but I'm not familiar with the artist. This is a fairly new one. But an interesting first issue here because it mostly focuses on Ben Grimm and now the new Mrs. Alicia Grimm. Kind of just off on a weekend getaway, whatever else, but kind of gets into a weird hotel, I don't know, kind of like the whole town seems to be lost in time a bit. So kind of, like I said, an interesting first issue for a whole new run, new creative team, but then has a bit of a whopper of an ending. We're kind of get back to the rest of the team here. So, yeah, a very intriguing first issue. I'm not curious where the rest of the run's going to go on that one, but for Fantastic Four fans, it's a fun book because it is definitely, it does have kind of like an old school feel to it where it is a bit fun. There's some exploratory things going on. There's some weird happenings and a bit of a mystery going on as well. So, yeah. So there you go. So if you want to kind of an old school feel to it. A couple of new DC number ones here. Again, for old school fans, the new Golden Age. So this is not necessarily spinning out of the events of the Dark Crisis event, the big DC event that's currently going on right now. But the JSA members are involved in this, and now this is kind of spinning off a new JSA title that's going to be starting, I think, next month. This is kind of the first initial issue, and then following from there will be a new JSA book. But there is kind of like a generational sort of thing where we kind of see the formation of the JSA again. We kind of see them throughout the years, and then we see kind of a futuristic version of it. But the commonality thing is there is a red-headed stranger who seems to be hunting the JSA. So, and he seems to be going through all the different timelines. So,
Can't tell.
Don't know who he is.
Star Girl on the cover.
What's that?
Girl on the cover. I can't tell.
That's Stargirl.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got there's Alan Grant, and there's Stargirl, Wildcat, and there's Jay Garrick up there. So a bunch of different
Golden Age or something.
Yeah, a bunch of different generations of the JSA. So, and last but not least, and for 90s fans, this is easily my favorite book of the week. The Wildcats are back. If you want to reintegrate an old property into the DC universe proper, this is a textbook way to do it. 100%. This is a fun book. It's a great throwback for not only Wildcats fans, but if you're like 90s Image fans, there's a few other characters who were not on the original Wildcats team who are now on this new version and have kind of repurposed some other characters, but it all makes sense, especially again if you're a 90s Image fan. But yeah, this is incorporated into the regular DC universe. Last year we met Grifter and Zealot once again on the pages of Batman and some of the other Bat books adjacent to that. Reinvigorate the Wildcats universe again. But yeah, this one just drops them right hard in the DC universe here. So lots of guest stars in this. We see kind of their team's place in the DCU right now. So yeah, lots of fun to come here. Tons of variant covers for that. So especially if you're a Grifter and a Zealot fan, they have solo covers. But the fun thing is that DC is doing 90s throwback this month. So there's all these like 90s art style variant covers, and also they're doing foils.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like the Wildcats one's like all red. There's a Joker variant for it. One of his books it's all green, and there's a lot more to come. So, yeah. So there you go. So that's all I got for this week here. So, if you all have anything new you want to show off?
Well, there's a comic I was really hoping to pick up that came out, I think, last week. The Bill and Ted Death comic. A spinoff.
Oh.
The local comic shop didn't have it.
Oh.
They didn't get it in. Have to get it somewhere else. I do have some new loot. Last
cool.
week in Louisville was Nerd Luvia, our role-playing convention.
Mm-hmm.
And besides having, I don't know, maybe 20 some odd game tables going at the same time. They had a full vendor room and then a spill over into another room as well. I picked up this great Jack Burton chibi keychain.
Oh, I love
That
that.
is cute.
It's all in the reflexes. And
Oh.
I got a book that I pre-ordered several months back. Finally came in this week. The Marvel Anatomy book.
Ooh.
This is thick. It's like coffee table book style. It shows the interior of characters and armor, and talks about the history and all kinds of stuff. Full glossy. It's gorgeous.
That is.
And that would look great beside the Marvel Encyclopedia that I have.
And one that I got, it's been almost a month, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet. And the specs reminded me of it. The They Live board game.
I love it.
That is a thick box. Has characters in here, everything. The best things are the dice to see whether they succeed or not. On some sides, they say chew bubblegum. Some sides, they say kick ass, depending on whether you stand around, chew bubblegum, or whether you actually do something. And it comes with Hoffman lenses that let you see different things on the cards. Yeah.
That's cool.
It is extremely cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that I maybe have to purchase that one myself.
Yeah.
So
I started this one almost 2 years ago. It took a long time to get out, but I can't wait to get into it.
that's fantastic. Yeah, when I first saw that specs book, I immediately thought They Live as well. I'm like, oh, this kind of is, and it wasn't. It's something different, but that cover is very reminiscent.
Mhm.
Willow, you have anything you got to show off?
No, not right now. Nothing
Okay.
new. Sorry. I haven't left my house to go shopping in a while, so
Well, there you go. Well, if you ever need your comic hookup, of course, I work for Clobbering Comics. We have a Whatnot channel, so you can get on there and people get comics all the time. And a lot of times people ask for they can't get to their own shops, and so they'll just ask us for new stuff. Like, oh yeah, we got that, and so we'll just send off that thing. So
oh.
yeah, so there's no auctions involved. Like, oh, you just need this book here, we'll sell you the cover price. There you go. So
I have to reintroduce myself to all the comic book stores in my area. So,
well, one last thing I got to show off for Loot here for Pop fans. I just saw this today in Walgreens. This is the new Walgreens exclusive for Elsa Bloodstone. So, yeah, she has her trademark shotgun here. So, yeah, Walgreens is getting some really killer exclusives. They have the Marvel Legends figures, the Baron Zemo and Quasar that's exclusive to them, and
Was
they've
that
always had.
your Zemo figure was Walgreens?
Yeah. So, yeah, he's got this at Walgreens too. They have this one in Quasar exclusive to the Walgreens.
Oh,
So go figure.
in the morning, huh?
Yeah, and it's the old school Wendell one Quasar too, not the new one. I can't remember what her name is. The brunette lady. Anyway, she's good. There's
when the
Quasar.
crossover with Star Brand. That was wild stuff. I loved it.
All right. Well, before we get to our video game talk here, I'm going to take a brief pause for our sponsors, and then we get back. It's time to play. So we'll be right back.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add more.
Visit cb4k.org.
And we're back. All right. So we're here to talk video games tonight. So, Willow, since it's your first time here, what was your first experience with gaming?
oh, okay. So, this is going way back into the 80s, where I was introduced to not just the first Nintendo, the Nintendo Entertainment System. ColecoVision was a huge thing, and so was Atari.
Yeah. That's awesome. Dave, what about you? What was your first experience?
The Pong and Breakout games that you plugged into your TV.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep. That That was mine as well. Ours wasn't an official Pong. I think it was just called like Video Tennis or something like that. It was just something, the generic version of that. But it was the same thing. So, but then, the few years later, we got in television. I got one for Christmas. It was Sears had like their exclusive in televisions, or Atari's, like they had like a design that was exclusive to them. So we had the Intellivision, which I had a lot of fun with that. But you want to talk about a complicated machine to operate. So if you've never experienced this, of course, Intellivision back in the day was Atari's direct competitor, even though they were a very distant second. But their ColecoVision was third, but basically, Intellivision number two. But the controller for Intellivision was a 9-button keypad, looked like a phone readout, and then your control monitor was like a gold 360 disc. You did that, and then you had four buttons, two on each side. That where else? So basically, you would have to hold the controller like this, and it was a very awkward way to control things. But then each game that you had would have this insert you could put in on the control pad, and it would tell you special moves or actions or whatever else. So it was not the easiest thing to play in the world, but they had a lot of the games that Atari did, but they had some really cool exclusives. Like my favorite, being a horror fan, they had a Dracula game that I never saw for any other system, and it was literally you're Dracula running around at night in London, attacking people and draining their blood. And you could fight the cops, but you had to sneak up on them. And if they had a direct contact with them, they could billy club you. And also apparently dogs, or they look more like wolves, but they were supposedly dogs, could attack you as well. And so you would have to turn into a bat to escape from them. But basically, if you didn't get caught with the wolves, as long as you were inside by sunrise, you're okay.
Run around killing everybody in the village, like an early GTA. All right, I dig
it. Yeah, but it was kind of there was a lot to it for an old school 8-bit game like that, or not even an 8-bit game. So there's a lot to that. But that was one of my favorites. So what was your favorite old school games growing up, Willow?
Oh, probably Super Mario Brothers was a big one. For the NES, there was a game Roger Rabbit.
Oh,
and it was one of the first interactive games where you can actually hit Roger and it kind of just smack him around. And I remember being astounded by that because of the fact that it was an 8-bit, 16-bit game. And the amount of detail into that game for that time was, I'm still astounded by that.
Yeah, I remember that game, yeah. Dave, what was some of your favorites?
I like the text adventure games, the Zork, Scott Adams Adventure Series, things like that.
Yeah.
And the other puzzle type games like Monkey Island, that series I always loved.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely remember the Monkey Island series. Those were awesome. Yeah, so those were definitely kind of very much like the RPGs we know today, where you had a lot of side quests and your main quests, and interaction with people, stuff like that. But the amount of humor that was in the game, and it was
incredibly
funny stuff too.
Yeah, you had to learn how to insult people. That's how you won a sword fight, was through insults.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, it was kind of we had some interesting adventure games like the Leisure Suit Larry games, though they were mostly sex involved too. Those were really kind of funny as well. But we had some.
And the Hitchhiker's Guide was its own game as well.
Yeah,
and another one, the Starship Titanic, which.
I never played that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely a couple of my favorites growing up. I mean, Missile Command right here. Always loved that one. Joust, Burger Time. Those were some good ones there. But definitely we've got more in the Nintendo stuff. A lot of the more actiony games, definitely was big Contra, Castlevania. I was in all those. So those were a lot of fun. But I definitely I'll get a lot of the popular games and stuff like that as time goes on. But I'll get I'll find a game and I'll kind of get stuck on that one for a while. So, anytime
Kind of like me with the Resident Evil series.
I'm right there with you. Matter of fact,
25 years later, I'm still playing through the first game, going, okay, I know there's a zombie dog around here. Don't get scared. Don't get scared.
and I just noticed, I'm going to bring up here on the solo here, that you're wearing your Star shirt. I've been doing this the whole time, and I didn't realize you're wearing your Star. That is so cool. I love it.
And I liked Q*bert because it was so surreal and bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never any good, but I was fascinated by Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, the cartoon games. They were just astounding.
I know. There's, to get with, an animation master who's, had many successful films, over his career, to basically get into video games. And he did like 3 of them because he did 2 Dragon's Lair games, Space Ace, and I think that was it.
There was a gangster one that I never actually saw.
That's right. Yeah, there was. And I knew there was a 4th one. Yeah. But yeah, I've just been a heavy gamer my whole life. I mean, it's kind of, definitely had like a lot of arcades, growing up and, playing a lot of those. So anytime I can get my hands in an arcade, definitely love doing that. So, and I've got to play some like kind of what I found later on were kind of some like unique games. Like, of course, you remember the old Paperboy game. Most of the time, you had like the standard coin op with the handlebars and you just stand up and play. Apparently, and I played it in St. Louis when I was on vacation with my family. There's a Paperboy that like it's a bike. You sat down on, like you basically you still only just had the handlebars for your controls, but you were sitting down where it felt like more like a bike. So, and apparently that's a rare game. So,
really, pedals too to control how fast or slow you were moving.
Yeah. So I don't remember the pedals doing anything. I just remember it was just the handlebars, but it was just kind of like, oh, this is really cool. I've never seen the sit down one before. So
in Louisville, we have a lot of different co-working spaces where you share an office or whatever, and a lot of them are themed. There's one that's just for fashion. There's one that's just for food. There's also one just for creating video games. There are, I think, at maybe 10, 15 1, 2, 3 person companies all sharing this space. And every now and then at the actually, I guess almost all the time, at the Arcade Expo that we have every year with the money going to usually Children's Hospital or something like that, they will have some entries. And a few years ago, they had one that was a blast. They had a projector, so showing up on a wall, they had Street Fighter, but instead of the usual controls, it was Dance Dance Revolution. So you had to jump all around up and down to hit these buttons with your feet. And by the time you felt like you were in a street fight.
I love that. Oh, that would be a blast to play.
When it came to arcade games, I was definitely like the Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Double Dragon was like my first love when it came to arcade games. Yeah. I would literally be pulled off the machine. Okay, time to go home.
Yeah. I was definitely that kid too, Will. Yeah, of course. I was fascinated with the Tron movie too as a kid, and so I loved the Tron video games as well. The Star Wars game, the old black and white one, where basically you were just doing the Death Star run the whole time. So yeah, I love that one too. We did have a Chuck E. Cheese that was in our area where I grew up in. I only got to visit like a couple of times for birthday parties or something like that. But they lived up to the hype with their games back in the day. Now, today I think they have a completely different system where it's like the games for little kids. Like they don't have old school games, but yeah, back in the '80s, man, they're glory days. So,
yeah.
So.
A tabletop game, role playing, that kind of stuff, rather than the video game. I mean, video games are fun, but you can sit down for an entire day with your buddies, rolling dice and making up goofy things.
Yeah, I mean, I did plenty of that too. That's plenty of tabletop and lots of D&D in high school. Also, I was in a Shadowrun group as well. We did that for a little bit, and then we moved over to Rifts. And Rifts was an awesome game. If y'all anyone ever heard of that one before, the initial core system basically was you could pretty much create anything you wanted, and that's what you could play as. So the limits were optionless, or you had no limits basically, because basically it dealt with basically rifts in space and time and the multiverse and whatever else. You had access to all these different worlds and lands and whatever else. So you can mix fantasy characters and sci-fi and superheroes and ninjas and super spies and whatever else. So yeah, that was awesome stuff there. They had one companion I was fascinated with called Wormwood, and it kind of had like a bit of a fantasy kind of look to it, but also everybody had symbiotic organisms on them. And so the symbiotes like did different things for them, different bonuses or whatever else. But yeah, everybody had a symbiote on this planet. But it wasn't like Venom where you're completely covered stuff. It looked like you had like big attachment or something was like half covering your face or whatever else,
Yeah, I've heard that sometimes described as gene punk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, fascinating.
Sci-fi and superhero games myself, so Champions and the Marvel stuff, I'm all over that.
Yeah, and of course you were talking to me about during Nerdluvia, you were running the Marvel Multiverse game.
Yeah, doing the Avengers from the MCU. They haven't debuted as an actual team, but everybody who could be on the Young Avengers was there, so it was fun. Ms. Marvel, Miles Morales, a whole bunch of guys. It was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, because Marvel's got 2 games out right now. Because there's that one, and I can't remember what the other one is. That basically that's more of the tabletop style with the miniatures and all that jazz.
Oh yeah, I forget what it's called, but Marvel, not Conflict. I think it starts with a C. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Somebody else was doing that one there too. It looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that one, like if you get into the model building and stuff like that, I've seen people make like complete New York City models, and there's like everybody, all over this thing. Like, I want to play that. Well, we've talked, of course, a lot more classic stuff. So, any more modern stuff, like maybe anything within like the last 10 years, it's kind of struck your all's fancy at all?
I played a lot of The Division with my husband and his friends. We haven't really. We got out of playing that after the pandemic hit. It just felt like it was way too close to home. But I really like it now with Resident Evil having an online game similar to The Division. I'm thinking about downloading that and playing that through and see how that is.
Nice.
I remember when video games started going to the online thing, my husband's like, no, this isn't for me. I don't want to play with anybody. I want to just play through these games myself. And then now he has like more friends than I do that he plays with.
Well, speaking of Resident Evil, have you played any of the remakes of the original classics?
Yeah, I have, and they've done really well. I know for like the GameCube, they started like doing the remakes back then, and for a while there, I did have the GameCube, so I was missing out on all like Code Veronica and all that. And then they started bringing them to like the PlayStation, and so yeah, I've been playing them through, and Resident Evil 7 is a really good game. And although it's funny that they seem to be stuck on Resident Evil 4 now.
Well, that's the newest remake that's coming up pretty soon here.
Yeah,
because that's the thing is like they did the GameCube remakes for 1, I know, but then they remade one again for the PS4s and 5s and stuff like that. And those are worth it, especially if I was a big fan of 2 and 3. And those remakes are
like going way back to like the PlayStation is when the first PlayStation came out.
Love it. Well, Dave, what about you? You anything more recent?
No, after working in the industry, I kind of lost my appetite. That people who enjoy eating sausage could not watch it being made.
I can understand that.
experience in the industry. I just, it's not really my thing much anymore, knowing how everything works.
Do you still play anything of the older stuff from time to time, or?
Not really. I'll do the simple puzzle things. I'll limit myself to one game on the phone, and that's Words with Friends. I've been playing that one for 10 years, something like that, and I do a daily crossword puzzle on the phone, but that's as far as I go. Don't want to get involved in anything else that moves faster or takes more of my time.
Nice. But see, I mean, you've since transitioned back to more of the tabletop stuff and RPG. So
I've never stopped that.
Yeah,
I had a publishing company for 13 years and published 100 role-playing things in that time, and 300 novels or something along that line. So it's always been a part of me. And now I'm in 2 in-person gaming groups each week and 4 online in nights, during the week games. So almost more than I can handle.
nice. It sounds like it. Now, speaking of gaming, have either of y'all ever done any like live action role playing for any role playing game?
Like I've done like the role playing stuff online, like in wow. This is how old I am. Chat groups where we would actually create our own stories and.
Oh, okay, there you go. Cool. Well, Dave, what about your experiences?
I did some SCA stuff
Okay.
back in the day, which is fun. Played a couple of systemless LARPs, almost like the how to host a murder kind of things, but with 100 or more people at a time. Get a building or something downtown and get this whole mystery, and here's who your character is, and we all run around doing stuff. There's 3 or 4 people who are running it all if there are questions or whatever, and masterminding. Okay, while this thing is happening in this room, the other thing's gonna be happening over here, so you got to coordinate these things. Or like a theater with no scripts kind of thing. Those are a lot of fun as well. And I played a couple of the actual classic, what you would call the LARPs. Ones I really like their mechanism for resolution. It's not rock paper scissors. You don't roll really big dice on the ground. You have stopwatches, and whatever the 10th of a second is, that's what your number is. That's a nice way to do it. And they have watches to come with the game, so everybody always has one.
Yeah. Let's see. Trying to think. It's been a while, but I went to one convention and they were playing live action Vampire the Masquerade. So this, of course, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I think. So that was awesome because the group of guys I was with, we'd never played before, so we got in with a large group. And though we were really low vampires, our physical appearance is like I was, should I say, I think I was the shortest in the group. And so we got the award for most physically intimidating. Because it was like there were 6 of us. We're all dressed in. Oh, I don't know. No, we were all about the same height. I was the only one with short hair. That's what it was. There were 6 of us. And I was the only one that had short hair. Everybody else was like long hair guys, and so. So I think that I was like I hung out with all my metal friends, and I was the one you can introduce to your parents that was okay because like I looked normal, but in here not so much.
I've always wanted to join a LARPing group, but it seems like they all have their own groups like outside of the city, and trying to get there is a little difficult without a vehicle.
I can understand that. And then I have played a little bit of D&D. They do they make the weaponry, the foam or cardboard or whatever else. So I made a cardboard sledgehammer that was as tall as I am. And got a blast.
George froze.
Oh dear. But yeah, no. When it comes to LARPing, like at the conventions lately, I've been seeing a lot of LARPing groups, and I've been tempted to join them, but yeah, it's just one need time, and I mean it's not a stretch from going to cosplay to and do LARPing.
And going from or improv comedy, it's not really much difference there either. Oh, and speaking of, next Sunday, the 19th, is going to be another honorary Kemprov. A friend of mine, Kemp, died several years back, and every year since, he was an improver. Improvers from around the state all knew him and loved him, so we come together, and it's like an improv all-star kind of thing, doing all the games that he loved the most. So that's going to be the 19th at the Bardstown in Louisville.
Oh, wonderful! Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. The Bardstown's a great venue too for live theater and stuff like that, performances. So yeah, that should be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Also, they have lots of tasty beverages and food there too, so that makes it even better.
I've been thinking about returning to doing stand-up comedy. I did it a couple times. I had fun. The first time I did better than the second one, but
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I've sang in public. I've done theater before, but I've stand-up comedy was the one thing I kind of knew. Like, I love comedy. I appreciate comedy. I'm occasionally funny, but I know my wheelhouse, and I'm just going to stay over here.
Yeah, I don't think I could do stand-up. I've done improv, and I make people laugh anytime that I'm up there teaching or preaching or doing a seminar or anything like that. But I don't know how to be funny, just like I don't know how to not be funny. It's just who I am. I don't know if I can direct it intentionally.
Well, from what I've also heard from other comedians, they talk about it. We think that it's just them coming off the top of their head, and there is a lot of times that has to happen. But there's also a tremendous amount of preparation and research they do in their stuff too. So there's that as well. And they work on the act, either when they're practicing at home or they're trying things out in smaller venues or whatever else. But yeah, so it's interesting stuff. I've always been fascinated by the process of it. So.
A friend of mine was a comedian out in San Francisco. He didn't decide to start until he was 40. You know what? I'm going to try and be a comedian. So went to an open mic night, and he did great. Did a few more times and got even better. Then he started getting invited to comedy shows. Then he was a headliner. Then he started touring. But he wasn't a stand-up comedian because he was in a wheelchair. He was a wheelchair comedian. His business card said 100% comedy, 0% stand-up. And he heard about a blind comedian in California. So they got in touch. And between them, they found a stuttering dyslexic comedian and a little person comedian. So together they formed the Comedians with Disabilities Act.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's a great thing too. Like, I've seen a lot recently, like on America's Got Talent, there's a lot more comedians with disabilities coming forward. And while they're very upfront with their disabilities, they use that in their comedy. These guys are funny too, or people, I should say. They're just, it's just some great material. So
I think it was like the second season of Last Comic Standing that they had a guy that had a disability, and man, that guy is just super hilarious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's nice the scope's broadened a bit more, and more people allowed in. So that's awesome, Will. Congratulations. Hope you decide to get back in there. That's great.
For a while there, it was tough because it was like trying to find comedy in my situation. But a lot of it now is family based, and I'm getting to the point where, if my family wants to continue being stupid, I'm not going to feel sorry about making fun of them.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. All right, so wrap things up here a little bit. So, Dave, since you're not playing much gaming now, video-wise, what are you playing right now that's non-video gaming that we should know about?
Oh gosh, I'm in, like I said, several role-playing campaigns. One is just now starting back up after a 5-year break. It's our in-person group, and that one was great because more than half the people were less than half my age, playing with a bunch of kids, 20s or whatever. But that one ended because two of them got married to each other and moved to Texas for an Air Force thing, but now they're back. So we're getting the band back together kind of deal, and kind of picking up and starting afresh and going from. So that's going to be really exciting. It's going to be set in Gotham City in the present day.
All right.
Wow.
What we did it last time, it was Gotham City set in the 80s, and about half of us were actual DC characters. I was playing the Creeper. We had somebody who was a Hawk Girl and stuff like that. This time where we're all just doing original characters. I'm going to be somebody who's kind of like the Astro City Crackerjack guy, an acrobatic guy, is more of a shmup than anything else. So that's going to be funny. I'm going to have a good time with that one.
Nice. Willow, what are you playing right now?
Right now, nothing. I watch my husband play video games here and there, but I have to get back into playing video games. I might start doing some streams here and there when I actually get down to downloading the new Resident Evil game. So
There you go. Yeah, I would say the last two new ones, Biohazard and Village, have been really cool. Nice entries into the franchise there. So we kind of broaden things and freshen up a little bit too. Let's see. Well, of course, I was stuck for a good 2 years on Red Dead Redemption 2 because those Western games are just amazing. So I love me some Rockstar games. But right now, I've been kind of going two completely different worlds here. Been playing a wrestling game, the current WWE 2K, doing kind of the career mode on there right now. So you're in the presence right now of a double champion. I'm both the world and U.S. champion. So, don't clap, just throw money. But the other ones I've been playing, there's a series that's been out called The Dark Picture. And they started, there was, trying to think, I can't remember the name of the game, but there's a game that came out Until Dawn came out a few years ago. And it was basically, it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure, but you're like playing a movie because it looks like it's kind of a standard horror movie. You got to cast the characters. And the nice thing that they do is they actually take a real actor and cast them in the lead role. So you have a recognizable face, and then the other people are just other actors. As the action and story is going on, how you act throughout the game and how you interact with the other cast members affects the game. It affects the outcome and sometimes affects who lives, who dies, whatever else.
Cool.
Well, the same developer started the Dark Pictures anthology, and all of these are anthology games where it's basically you've got a host. He's I think called the curator. He may be deaf. You don't know. He's a spooky guy, and all the games have their own kind of different themes. So there's the first game is called Man of Medine, and that's like you're underwater diving, looking for treasure, and you find some treasure, and there's some curse and kind of things going on with that. The second game was called House of Ashes, which takes place during the Iraq War, and basically you're dealing with Iraqi mythology with their underworld, which is basically they call it the House of Ashes, and so you're fighting vampires. But it's a lot of Middle Eastern mythology, religious mythology stuff in there too. So that's kind of cool. The third game is called Little Hope. That's like a ghost story kind of thing. You're trapped in maybe a ghost town sort of thing like that. So that's really cool. And the new one I haven't played yet, but it just came out called The Devil in Me, and it's a documentary team is going to cover a hotel that was reportedly kind of like the H.H. Holmes guy, where it was like a hotel that was basically a murder hotel. So the guests would come in, they wouldn't make it out alive, something like that. So the documentary crew is investigating this old rundown hotel, supposedly like that, and maybe one of the crew members gets possessed and things happen from there. So, but just really, really fun game, especially if you like the horror stuff, but they're not like too terribly spooky or whatever else. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's like the interactivity. It's got a nice fun, a nice fresh way of doing things.
And if you guys are fans of survival horror, I apologize, Dave. If you guys are fans of survival horror, there's a really good game called Dead by Daylight. And you can either play as the killer or the survivor, which you have different attributes and skill sets for both, either or. I often find myself playing as a survivor and trying to beat out the killer. But then you get the odd time where the killer is not doing anything. It's like, come on, I'm over here.
Nice. Dave, what were you going to say?
There's a board game I think you would like to. It's been around for several years called Betrayal at a House on the Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Getting a haunted house, and eventually one of you turns evil and tries to kill the rest. And then it becomes a cooperative of everybody else against that one person. There's only one way you can kill them, get the right things in the right room, and maybe with the right people or whatever kind of thing before you all die horribly. And it's very fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, board games have gotten amazing. Matter of fact, actually, Will, you reminded me of a game I recently played. It's called Control. I think Remedy Games put it out. This was a really cool game because it's another third person, a lot of RPG stuff going on, but it's difficult to describe what genre it falls into aside from weird. But it's basically like a lot of psychic powers, a lot of like parallel worlds, definitely a heavy Twin Peaks sort of influence. And trying to think, there was a Alan Wake, the Alan Wake series. If y'all ever heard of those before, it's kind of set within this world, very much Twilight Zone-y sort of stuff like that. But yeah, the basic premise is that a woman is looking for her brother that they separated since childhood due to a weird event. She goes to New York City. There's this office building she goes into. The office building itself is sentient, basically. And the organization works in there, but the building itself is corrupted. So while you're trying to find your brother and kind of unlock the mysteries of your childhood, what's going on in there, you're also trying to cleanse the building of this corruption that's in there.
Cool.
So, like I said, very heavy Twin Peaks stuff, really kind of heavy sci-fi weird stuff. But yeah, very cool game, and they're about to make a sequel to it, so I'm excited about that. And then, of course, survival horror stuff. If you've never played the Last of Us game, the HBO Max series is coming out next year. And I'll tell you what, if you want to get like a great survival horror story, but also like heartbreaking performances, like the game will scare you.
That's all I want is a TV show that'll make me cry every night.
Imagine The Walking Dead with more emotion in it.
You know what? That's the funny thing about The Walking Dead. I couldn't choose any favorite characters because they would all die. So now it's like, now it's another show that I can't choose favorite characters.
Well, that's the thing. It's easy with The Last of Us. Granted, there's a lot of side characters, whatnot, but there's really two main characters to care about. That's it. So if you just care about those two, you're good to go.
Over the summer that surprised me was Paper Girls. I had read the comic, which was great, but I didn't even know there was a show coming out until all of a sudden it was there.
Yeah.
It's kind of Stranger Things-ish, but more sci-fi than supernatural or psychic stuff.
Yeah.
Time travel, aliens, mecha. It's a blast.
Yeah. I haven't watched the show, but I'm familiar with the books. I've heard good things. So even though the show, I think the show got canned after one season already. So
it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
I liked it better than this season of Stranger Things, which was very
nice. Nice. Yeah, I was a huge fan of this season of Stranger Things, more than I've ever been for the show. So, yeah, but I didn't hear a lot of comparison to it. Yeah, so well, that's awesome. So, well, cool. Well, I think that's about wrapping us up for the night here. So, I appreciate all of y'all being on here.
Not a problem.
Yes, thank you. So, Will, you have anything you want to plug here aside from Cryptid Crunch here, which, of course, your regular show there?
Yeah, next week Sunday, tune in. This week Sunday will be Ice Cream Queens. I haven't yet figured out a theme for my show yet, but we'll come up with something.
Yeah, I love Cryptid Crunch. You guys come up with some really cool
Thank
topics. So, yeah. So what was the cat you all came up with? We were talking about last week. There's some kind of weird cat thing, or
yeah, I'm not remembering, but yeah, no, it's Keisha has definitely like strange creatures that that are on her farm, and so I'm curious as to see what may pop up next next episode.
I know there's a lot of wildlife. So Dave, what do you got coming up?
Well, I'm definitely going to watch some Batman animated this weekend to honor our friend Kevin. And if you are in the Louisville, Kentucky area, I recommend coming to Kemprov on the 19th to be with some of the best improv comics for miles and miles around.
There you go. That's at the Bardstown, which is on Bardstown Road. So there you are. So yeah, a fine venue there. So lots of good theater and performances and whatever else there. So, well, good. Well, I will take you guys out of the chat here, and I'll say goodbye to folks here. But thank you guys for coming out to the forum tonight. I appreciate it. Good to have you all out here.
Everyone.
All right. Well, like I said, that wraps up for this week here. Next week, wrestling fans, stay tuned because I do have a fun guest this week, especially if you're in the Louisville area. It's a face you all know. So you guys have yourselves a wonderful weekend out there. And, of course, again, happy Veterans Day to all of our service members out there. Thank you very much. And, so go watch Black Panther. I'm going to, stay off spoilers for a little bit here and let you guys watch it. But maybe we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks here. So you all have yourselves a wonderful time, and we'll see you next time on the Fanatic Forum.